Thank you for joining. This is the first meeting for the Downtown Fall River Local Rapid Recovery Plan. The purpose for tonight is to give a background on what these rapid recovery plans are about. We'll talk about the project goals and the timeline. The majority of tonight will be spent on the diagnostics and the data results, which is this first phase that we are just wrapping up at this stage. We begin to talk about potential projects, but that's really the next phase of this effort. And then we'll go through, briefly what is coming. What is the Rapid Recovery Plan program? This is a planning grant program offered by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. I'll often refer during this to DHCD. And the real focus here is to develop action-oriented implementation initiatives to lift communities and help them recover, revitalize as quickly as possible post-pandemic. And another part of it, there's 120 communities, which you'll see in a moment, but a real big piece of this is for the state to get a real understanding across the board of what impacts have really occurred with the pandemic. With that said, and of course the data-driven plans to aid the recovery. With that said, our communities across the state have had a number of issues that are ongoing and were pre-pandemic. This is a real opportunity to begin to address those as well. So it is both, and that's what we are focused on as we go through. Again, here are all of the communities that we are looking at. We are one of the 16 large designations. Here's our the study area, which again just core downtown area. And as you look at this, the planning schedule, we are it seems a little bit off on this when it was saying, end of May for this presentation, but there's been about a 2 to 3 week extension throughout. And even when we look at the final plans, it's really in September when these will be due. But, with that said, this is a very fast-paced, quick planning effort with a pretty close turnaround, a near-term turnaround. The areas that we are looking at in this effort are the public realm, the private realm, helping our businesses with their revenue and sales, and what are the strategies that come with that. Administrative capacity, which is, again, the organizations, the entities, be it cities, business improvement districts, et cetera, other organizations that really can help make things happen and assist with the implementation initiatives. And how can that be strengthened is actually a core piece of this. Looking at the tenant mix within a community and what might be lacking and what are some potential opportunities. And then how do we wrap the culture and the arts more closely into our downtowns through different initiatives. Important to note, we are working with a number of plan efforts. The downtown, there's a number of plans going on already. We are building from them. Many goals, objectives, potential projects have already been identified, and we will build those and wrap those into this. So very much so, we want to be working with other efforts. We are not trying to duplicate anything that has already been done or is in the works. Each community submitted an application, and within that application, we're looking at the first tier priorities, short term, and the mid longer term priorities. Fall River is what we submitted. Really a focus short term is the focus on small business stabilization. We want to enhance and increase the amenities to support businesses. In what ways can it be through branding, through marketing, through other initiatives might we be looking at? And then, which is an important factor, is to improve quality of life features. Again, this one falls kind of in the, even pre-pandemic, how do we make the environment exciting, active, welcoming? People want to spend more time within downtown. And those quality of life features that come into play, and they become things like benches, like landscaping, planters. They really fall into a wide variety of areas that really help to improve the overall quality of life, safety, et cetera. In the long term, again, this district management, this administrative capacity is going to be critical, and we want to make sure we're taking the right steps now to move in that direction. parking supply and management. Part of this is doing stakeholder interviews, speaking to different entities, businesses. We have heard a lot about parking and the issues surrounding it in terms of the supply, location, the management, and that is a big piece of this that we're looking at. And then real estate development, and how can we really make sure that we're looking at some of these properties and these buildings. The historic infrastructure is so intact. Let's make sure we protect it, preserve it, enhance it, and really help the business and the developers really begin to take these on, increase the upper floor living, etc. Now tonight, the purpose very specifically is to share what they're calling the baseline data, the qualitative and quantitative, for the on-ground conditions. We actually, on our team, developed an app that went block by block, business by business, street tree by street tree, crossing by crossing, to take an assessment of what is happening. And then we have taken all that information, as you'll see in the following pages. We also conducted a business survey to hear firsthand from the businesses what the impacts were from the pandemic. And then, again, as I just mentioned, talking to other community members to understand, what are the concerns, the issues, and also, as I always will say, what are the opportunities that we are seeing? And then, going forward, we begin to translate these into, the priorities, the goals, and ultimately the projects that we will be recommending. So the diagnostic and the data analysis, broken into these following categories: the market information, the physical environment, the business environment, and of course, the administrative capacity. As we've been measuring, this is the information we're gathering. Here's what we're assessing, and we're coming to essentially what we will call a grade. Now, this is DHCD's program as they've developed it, and it's very helpful. One system is essentially looking at a community and all these issues, from the street trees to the benches, sidewalks, and ranking them from an A, B, C, or F as we look at it. And that's what we'll be looking at today. The overall grade in Fall River, as we've determined, we and the working team, Sarah and Jim, is a B. Now I want to pause here because the B is based on metrics, and they're graded in many ways. They are graded for the study area, so the sidewalks get a grade. And, so in some areas, things may be positive. In other areas, they may be on the more negative side. When you take all of them, as we know, right, we sometimes end up in the middle. And that's what you'll see that tonight. It's important here to say, that is not all telling, and that will not determine or not determine a potential initiative that we're going forward with. And we think very much so, I joke in some of these meetings, a lower grade speaks to an opportunity that we can seize upon. And so this may be the one time where getting lower grades, points to positive momentum and the reasons for why that should be coming to Fall River. So let's jump in. And again, looking at the sidewalks, ultimately you have, a historic, intact downtown. Your sidewalks are, they're maintained in many locations. They're connected. If I could have given a B- or a C+, we may have had a different one. And I want to just call out, there are plenty of locations in the study area where if you were just looking at that alone, it is an F. And we want to address those, identify those. We will actually take this grading system and we will do it at a deeper dive in the report so that we can, diagram and point out to where there's issues and priority areas for improvements. The street trees and benches. And as I go through these, there's always, you hear the guiding principles of, I'm not going to speak to what they are, but an image that really tells of, here's the ideal situation. I'm being a little bit, since I can't give a B- or a C+ in this situation, based on the criteria that has been laid out in this planning effort, it probably falls closer to a B. This one really, for purposes, we're calling it a BC without a doubt. And when there's core items that are, really just missing, benches, that's a problem. And we don't want anything to get lost in this, data analysis that we are beginning to identify as these things. Now, I may call it amenities during that. That's just, technical speak for things that, community members, visitors, want to have. Benches is a very important piece, and just one. Lighting, like, for example, other ones as we come to it. Again, in this area, the lighting is pretty strong. You have nice decorative lighting. You also have overhead lighting, and it fits very much the criteria what they're looking at. But there are locations and spots where we can make improvements, and that do need up more lighting. And I'll just take one quick aside on the lighting element. Lighting enhances safety, creates a much more comfortable environment. It improves quality of life. So this area is one good example that, indicators are beginning to say in key areas, lighting is a priority and may well become and evolve into a specific project. Wayfinding and signage, how we get around, how helpful everything is, how cohesive everything is, and very easy visually to follow. This is a solid C. You certainly have signage. There's been efforts made for more cohesive signage components in Fall River, but it's scattered. There is no consistency, and that creates a confusion in terms of what we're seeing out there right now. And as some had mentioned, some of these actually kind of move with the wind or with age and are actually not even pointing in the right direction. And this is something that we feel is an important one to be focused on. Roadbed and crosswalks. Again, we're doing our double B- C+. There are certainly areas where they are in good shape, and this is a continual effort. This is a great example of where a city is continually improving, cleaning up, and identifying where it needs to maintain. So again, this will be a forever ongoing effort, and we want to recognize that. But we want to also begin to identify some areas where there isn't currently a crosswalk that might make sense. Again, if there's opportunities for funding to support some of these initiatives, we want to be in the right place at the right time, and having pointed that out in this planning effort. So in terms of the public realm, the key takeaways, you do have nearly complete sidewalk network. That's as a historic downtown, and that is a real strength, but you have areas that we have, real need of repair. We do think crosswalks, are faded. We need to improve them, and we're beginning to identify additional locations where they will make sense and will help improve safety. Parking, and I often say the parking management is an issue that we are hearing about. We're essentially, the city may very well be in need of a parking study to better understand issues regarding the availability and management of parking. And here's an example where we're beginning to very quickly go into a potential project. I will speak at the end of this presentation about the other assistance that we can get even in this first phase planning effort to help us push further on these. The streetscape amenities, without a doubt, there are opportunities to increase these, the benches, the lighting, really create an environment where somebody wants to spend 3 hours in downtown, having lunch, shopping, sitting, enjoying a cup of coffee to go. All of those help create this environment where more people on the streets for a longer time period than maybe just the working day. You begin to impact overall vitality and really make a difference. The lighting is a focus that we are looking at. And the final one is, I just want to do a quick little thing, is really looking at the comprehensive wayfinding system that we just spoke about. Now we look and move into the private elements of the downtown, the private buildings, properties, and what are those conditions, again, leading to potential support for businesses, property owners. Windows. Again, in the historic, you have every first floor, you've got these windows, many are fully transparent. Many, though, really are not. And this, really closes off the interior. These windows are meant to open up onto the street and for customers, visitors to be able to see into it. And it speaks oftentimes of conversions into non-retail entities, but even in those cases, the welcoming of seeing those folks in there working, engaging with their clients makes a real difference. And we need to look at this and seek ways to improve it. In other cases too, not shown in any of these images, many windows have a lot of clutter in them, be it a coffee maker, a box of files that are just cluttering up and really not creating anything that is visually appealing. It's more visually distracting. It shows lack of care. And there are really some easy fixes that require a little bit of education on many properties and business owners, but also a bit of a push too. I mean, it goes a long way and is absolutely low cost. Outdoor dining, we're falling into a C. Again, keep in mind when we're hitting these C's, opportunities for improvement are what we're looking at. This is part of this whole process. So do not get discouraged in any way as we look at this. But, these really, outdoor dining and displays really, they activate the streets unlike many other things can do. And, there are not areas throughout downtown where this will be possible. There are some narrow sidewalks, and we need to recognize that. But where there are opportunities, much like where we're identifying issues with sidewalks in need of repair, locations within downtown where this is a real opportunity, we want to begin to highlight and then identify where we can make some of these happen. But again, it creates that activity that we're looking for. Signage. Signage is throughout. It ranks here as the B. But there are outdated signs. There are some, vacant property signs that are, no longer valid, that are just still up there. But, again, every business has their, opportunity, their way of creating signs. And, we recognize that. We think there could be some opportunities, potential ideas of projects of buy-in where a more cohesive signage opportunity where, either grant or shares to leverage, signs that can improve facades that also come with core elements that begin to bring your downtown together. We've seen this in other communities. It can work really well. Awnings. You do have awnings throughout. You also are missing awnings, and these create issues with the fading of merchandise materials on the inside. They help the visual appeal, particularly with restaurants, et cetera, the shade to eat underneath. And, again, we want to make sure that, if this is a need, how can we potentially address it? And the facade, the, historic facades shown here, very well maintained, beautiful facades in downtown. Many are in need of repair. And we want to highlight that because, again, we want to make sure that there is opportunities and funding and support to bring so many of these historic buildings back to their glory moments. And again, we want to identify, help to correct. So overall, in the private realm, key takeaways, the historic infrastructure, I said it a lot, I probably can't say it enough. What an asset that your city has. And, we want to make sure that we can get them all back to where they should be. We want to unobstruct the windows on the first floor and even keep lights up above. Again, the more conversions into apartments above the first floor retail, the more lights on at night, the more light that pours out onto the street. We want to make sure that these windows are doing that and bringing the interior out into the public realm. We want to activate the streets with retail sidewalk sales, the dining, where we can make it happen, and really, make that environment almost more the 18-hour, we call it, so that workers stay, have drinks, happy hour, dinner, etc. And awnings, as we've mentioned, yep, we do believe there's an additional need, and we want to bring those in. So now we go into more of the the data results, the demographic information. We polled based on some recommendations, but and also how we like to look at an area. We obviously have the LRRP study area, the core downtown here in orange. We look at what we're calling a local market, which is a 1.5 mile. It's not a perfect circle. It's based on the roads, et cetera, how you would arrive. What it is it's a 30-minute walk and it's a 10-minute bike ride, because that multimodal capture of the surrounding community members is an important asset to look at and understand. Then, of course, we look at the whole municipality, the whole city, and then, of course, we compare it to the state. You're about to see, the information here. I always start this moment with the, fact that this is looking at future trends based on historic information. So these are computer systems coming up with projections, and they don't always match reality. I call them out in some places. There may be a need to call them out in further, but it does help in giving an overall image of what is going on. Ultimately, the growth is slow and does lag behind the state level. You don't have large residential population projections for downtown, but that is, again, the number one example where we want to look at what's happening and what the future opportunity is, particularly if we are helping to revitalize, increase the vitality of this area. We know projects are already in the works, they're coming, and we know from a square footage standpoint how many more residents would be coming in if these buildings are converted into residential or up floor residential. So sure, there's a projection, our goal and our aspiration, and I think the reality is that we will significantly change what the future projection based on historic data is. You do have an older downtown age currently. That has a number of influences. There's a number of affordable housing within downtown. As more apartments come in, more professionals come in, that age will certainly come down. But overall, older downtown, younger in the local market, than the state average. And then again, the median for Fall River is coming in very close at the state level. The downtown certainly is more diverse than the local market and the overall municipality, and with a high proportion of Hispanic origin, to find it number. And so again, exciting diversity creates a more vibrant place. We get excited by that. We think it's very important. And downtown has slightly more educational attainment than the surrounding area and the rest of the city, but they're not, these are not too significant here in terms of any changes. And the downtown's average household size, and this is again based on the size of the units, et cetera, it's roughly half of what the state size is. And again, just comparing the types of housing elements to the state as a whole. Currently, right now, the downtown's daytime employee population is 4 times greater than the residential population. Very helpful from a retail perspective, although residents spend 2 to 3 times more than a business person who is there for the day. So again, another indication that the more that we can increase the residential population in downtown, the more benefit to the local businesses along Main Street. And of course, downtown is predominantly rental. Condo markets in downtown environments, barring the New York, Boston, San Francisco, Seattle, tend to be more rental than condo. It's a tougher product to work with. So the likely focus in the future will continue to be rental at this time frame. And Fall River overall has half as many homeowners than the state, and that's an economic component. And that's while outside of our planning effort, I think is an important goal that we should be looking at. So a good place to take a side note that a lot of this information is just helpful for the city as a whole. What we heard from the businesses, the first and foremost from our data, you have a surplus of retail and food beverage. People are coming here to eat, drink, business owners, visitors coming to the shops, Alexandria's, so it's, that's positive. We still see room to make that more positive. But, the key piece here is, the businesses were, in their own words from their survey, were obviously greatly impacted by the pandemic. And they were, operating at reduced hours or capacity. They had many less customers coming in, and many were forced to close. This isn't going to come as a surprise to anyone who's listening today, and this is in no way unique to Fall River. But what, again, it does say is that there is a need to be addressed, and future funding and opportunities need to be there for the businesses that are here, and to support them. Kind of some final just overall statistics. Downtown does have a high crime rate. But crime really is a nuanced piece between violent crime and then all crime, many very small scale crime issues. So that's a data point that probably should be, sometimes it's difficult to, but should be parsed out to understand what is the real issues here that we're looking at. You do also have, a higher proportion of households below the poverty level, and your unemployment is higher than the city and statewide average. So that is something that we want to be focused on. I haven't used the word equity yet, I think, in this presentation. You'll hear that term more often when we're talking about the projects and initiatives coming forward. But the fact of the matter is, there are equity needs to be addressed here, and we need to make sure that when we are making our future plans, we are making sure that they are supporting everyone at all income levels and in ways that can help unemployment and other important issues. Only about half of downtown residents have access to a vehicle. From a, fact is, considering what is available for retail, et cetera, right now, it's an important thing to know to make sure that public transportation and other elements are as strong as can be, so that everyone can truly get around. So now we move into, again, I'm going to say I'm sorry for so much data, but we're listening to the diagnostic phase of this effort, and that was the priority, and that's what the expectation for tonight was. But as I mentioned, we're now moving into potential projects, and based on the original application, and even from what we've just begun to hear, we are going to focus first and foremost on opportunities to support and stabilize our businesses. And again, these are the near-term initiatives. We want to identify current and future public funds available for these local businesses, and how can they be applied, and how do we set up Fall River to get more than their fair share of these opportunities. We recognize the administrative capacity is an issue, and we are looking into the appropriate entity that can help improve that. That is actually an initiative that is has been ongoing, and we are building on, just as one example. And we're looking at this initiated parking study to really assess what the issues are surrounding parking. And we want to look at improving the public realm with increased amenities. As I've mentioned, but I probably haven't said because it wasn't a data point, but we've been hearing a lot more about how do we do these pop-up activities and programming, a farmers market, increased events that are happening on a weekly basis that bring customers in and bring them and visitors in, and keep them here for a longer time period. It makes such a big difference. We continue to focus on the quality of life issues, and we really do want to continue to support safety improvements for pedestrians and bikers. We call it technical multimodal, for all ways that people are moving themselves around. But again, as we look at the surrounding community, how do we bring those connections right into downtown? And then I end it with this, and with the question marks, because we are by no means done with this list. You'll have our contact information on the last slide. And if you have them, even ideas right now, you can put them in the chat box where we have it recorded, but also you can certainly email them to us. Without a doubt, we'd love to hear that. So what's coming next, just real briefly, we repeat this again. I've been talking a lot about the phase 2, but we are in this, ideation phase. Our goals and priorities are turning into preliminary projects and recommendations. We are going to work through these. Subject matter experts, you see that SME in the middle of this slide. The next slide will speak specifically to them. But, then we begin, once we develop our projects, identify everything that needs to happen with them to make them work. We then work and start to build in the plan document. These will not be large plans. They'll be significant, but they will be developed in the July, August, and finally final plans in September. So really only a few months away, and this planning effort will be complete. So the subject matter experts, there's a whole set of consultants that were hired alongside what you can refer to me as a plan facilitator, the individual who helps a community develop their full plan. But we get support from subject matter experts who come in, and when we've identified a project, they tell us exactly what needs to happen. They will review our preliminary ideas. They will help us make them more likely to be implemented. This is just a great way to bring more expertise to Fall River. And they are broken out in the following, public realm. Think about how we can, the sidewalks, the parking, the biking, the streets, everything I've been speaking about, plazas, park space, landscape architects, all of those are available. The private realm, overcoming zoning, permit, licensing hurdles. Also, though, helping businesses understand, maybe you don't want that paper sign up in your window anymore. That might be a distraction. Here are ways that you can really begin to market yourself. We're developing already best practices on just that, marketing efforts and others. So what are some tools that business owners may not have access to right now that this program will actually give them access to? So we're excited for this subject matter experts and the work they're already doing to both be applied as best practices, but also directly applied and massaged to fit Fall River. Revenue and sales, how can businesses increase those, and the administrative capacity, as I've talked about, but again, and the cultural and arts and tenant mix. So this is what we are doing right now based on the preliminary projects we just identified. We are churning to the subject matter experts. They will be meeting with our team in the matter of just a few weeks, starting now. We're submitting it this week to them. Again, as I said, I just want to end with any additional comments or questions. Jim, who has been just so helpful, but Sarah, of course, as you're seeing, and others might have been all part of the team. But if you're looking for information, please feel free to email either Jim or myself. We will absolutely get right back to you, and we really appreciate the information. A final plug I'll say before I'll stop talking is to all your friends and acquaintances who may be interested, please let them know that this whole meeting has been recorded, and so that they can access it. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everyone that is here. And Jim, I'm going to just pop over to you for a moment. Were any chats in the written down before I get my screen back in place?
No, there's nothing that popped up during the chat during the presentation, but this is a great opportunity to open up the discussion if people do have questions. And I should just introduce myself as well.
You should.
Yeah, I work for the State Economic Development Agency, Mass Development, and I'm in a program called the Transformative Development Initiative, or TDI. And so I work on the ground in Fall River, specifically focused on the South Main area. And I work within a partnership that includes some people on this call, such as Sarah and Mike. And together, we look at a number of the issues downtown, and we're trying to build, some of the things that were discussed even today, and address some of the issues downtown. We've really focused heavily on small businesses over the last year, but we've shifted more towards the public realm recently, and And so we're really happy to see a lot of this data coming together to support the kind of work that we've been doing. So again, I'm here on the ground working with these partners to provide some capacity and to also administer some of the resources that we have as an agency. So I am here as a resource for anybody who has questions about the program, anybody who has additional questions about this work with the local rapid recovery process as well. So I'm going to put my number in the chat as well. So feel free to give me a call as well as email me if you have any questions about this.
Good idea. Jim, I'm doing the same thing. I'll get my phone number in there as well, so that we've got it. All right, great. Any other questions or comments?
Actually, I have a comment. I have a comment on everything. I heard no mention of environmental considerations, and the fact that our city is totally beholden to the car, and that, so I know you're looking for short term, but I just didn't hear any planning for reducing the dominance of the car. One of the reasons I don't walk around is because of the fact that the car is the main beast, and the rest of us have to try to move around them. So that's a comment, but maybe it's in somewhere in there, but I didn't hear any of it.
It's a very good comment, actually. I'm stealing your comment and I'm putting it in, so it's part of the record here. To be 100% honest, it has not been mentioned too much. It doesn't mean it can't be mentioned, though. I mean, right? So every plan for every community is their plan. There's flexibility within this effort. It'd be interesting to think along the terms of the environmental issue, the impacts of the automobile, and ways that we can help improve those conditions in the near term. And it's a good comment that we will look into.
Steve, can I just add a little something there as well, because this has come up in other contexts. And one, I just want to remind folks that this is very hyper focused on downtown, and it really is primarily about the small business environment within the downtown, and how we're kind of creating a more vibrant space. However, your comment about a very car-centric city has come up in many other conversations and other contexts. One, the need for more multimodal transportations, the term that Steve used before. So more access to biking and pedestrian friendly infrastructure. In fact, Sarah, who's on this presentation right now, has been working diligently at a lot of those issues. And then, also we've heard in a lot of other contexts too. I mean, there's currently an arts and culture plan happening under the chamber as well with the Fall River Arts and Culture Coalition. And we highly encourage you to take part in those presentations. And if you have not already, had an opportunity to see some of the work that's been done in that planning process, there will be more to come. But a big topic of discussion has also been making the city more pedestrian friendly, reducing reliance on the car, connecting the amenities that exist. When you think about the Quikasham Rail Trail, and how do you connect that into the neighborhoods, into the downtown, into the city? How do you begin to connect these corridors from Main Street to the waterfront and the boardwalk? And there's so many opportunities to and that increases a sense of safety too. It's not simply reducing reliance on the car. It's making people feel comfortable coming outdoors and walking from neighborhood to neighborhood. And so we're hearing this again and again, and I think it's something that is worth mentioning in all the public meetings, quite frankly, because I think it's something that we want to see more of. So, just as a final comment here, we are, both our program looks at a very specific geography. So this idea of transformative development is one where you take a bunch of resources and you concentrate them in a particular area with the idea that, if you make a big investment over there and a big investment, somewhere else, and they're not connected, maybe the impact is not going to be that great. But if you concentrate, a number of different investments across sectors, the public realm, the private realm, the public sector, the private sector, you'll have a bigger impact, and you'll have greater, public and private investment following that, those initial investments. So that's the idea of our program. So again, we're really focused on these specific areas, but one of the things that just comes up again and again is connectivity and, creating these safe corridors. So I just want to reiterate, this is one planning process. There's probably a lot more to come. And we're actually hoping that more than just planning, that there's going to be substantial investment following on as well. And there are other folks who are working within this universe of gateway city revitalization that are very interested in this very topic that you're talking about. One I'll point out is Mass Inc. Is shifting their transportation-oriented development initiatives to kind of think more about some of these local issues.
And you've got the rail terminal coming in that's going to vastly impact the South Main Street area.
Absolutely. And in fact, to that very point, the Mass Inc. has been more recently hyper-focused on rail nodes, right? The stops on South Coast Rail and transportation oriented development basically around those rail nodes, and they're shifting focus at looking at the broader city and in thinking it of it outside of simply the impact of a rail link to Boston, right? So hopefully that perspective will translate into some good advocacy at the state level.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Sarah Labassi. I'm coordinator for Mass in Motion in Fall River. And I'm involved in, as Jim mentioned, multimodal transportation, equity, placemaking, wayfinding, these types of topics. I'm wondering if you've identified the subject matter experts for biking and pedestrian and wayfinding. I'm assuming that's in that public realm as well. Or is that the next step? Are there organizations you work with generally that you could identify now?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, and I'll answer it. Jim, you might want to weigh in. I wish we could, and I'm going to be completely biased because when it comes to some of the urban mobility issues, we have a really strong team that I would love to have help. And there may be ways within our, as the plan facilitator and the money going into this plan that we can rely on them because we're the same company. But the short answer is no, we don't choose the subject matter experts. We choose the needs of our community. We submit a profile. It's essentially the preliminary profile of what a project will ultimately become. Even at, it's in an early stage. We won't have all the information. We submit that to DHCD, and then they will identify the subject matter expert and connect them to the community. And you don't recommend or request somebody, but what I'll say is I know who's involved and the other firms, and they're good. So I'm confident that the subject matter experts that will, ultimately make their way to Fall River will be great. So I wish we could choose them because I think that would be great, but I'm confident we'll have strong ones coming our way.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you all for participating. And again, I'll say it, share this with other folks, let them know that it's here. And if you come up with ideas, think of anything, please reach out to us and let us know, because this is a fast evolving but it is an evolving effort, and we can insert changes, et cetera, throughout the whole process. So, and then the final piece is the next meeting will be about showing the ideas and the projects that we are beginning to really develop. So that will be coming, within a month or so. So not far away.
The last thing too is I'll say that if you a lot of the information that is presented here, but is presented in or is being created in all of our work, is going to be put up on the website at Viva Fall River. That is the organization that is essentially being incubated under the chamber to address a lot of these issues with the TDI partnership and a lot of the city efforts as well. So, please go to vivafallriver.com to, look at some of the, there's a lot of small business resources there, but there's a lot of public facing resources as well, community calendars, and we will be putting up a lot more information in the weeks to come. So please go to that site for more information.